Hi, I'm Lois. I'm the founder of Restored Eden Physiotherapy, and we're going to do some Pilates today, particularly for a meniscus injury. So we're just going to start off by warming our whole body up, but particularly our knees. So we're going to start with our feet and just try and get in touch with what our feet are doing. So we're going to go onto our heels and then our toes and then our heels and then our toes. So we're thinking about the positioning of our feet and just getting engaged with feeling where our body weight is going through our feet and waking up all of those intrinsic muscles. And then we're going to go from one side to the other side, and then the other, and then go round in circles. And then change direction. So just feeling the intrinsic muscles of our feet working. So if you think about our hands, we've got so many different muscles in our hands that we use and engage to do writing or unscrewing a tap or banging with a hammer or opening something or carrying a big box. And let's just change direction again. And we do so many different things with our hands, and with our feet they're capable of the same things, but we're just not engaged in them as much. So now we're just going to go into a squat. So we're trying to keep our heels on the floor and then swing round and then down and then do a circle. Try not to hit the monkey bar behind us. So really big circles with our arms, but then we're keeping our heels on the floor. So you might find it's difficult to get your heels on the floor, but we're just going to think about using our soleus muscles. So when we're in a squat position with our heels on the floor, then we're having to stretch our soleus, which attaches below the knee. So when we bend our knee, then we eliminate the gastrocnemius calf muscle, which is the other one, but the soleus muscle is below the knee. So when we bend our knees like this and we go onto our tiptoes, when we bend our knee, then we're really working our soleus muscle. So we're going to go on our tiptoes right to the very top, like as if we're trying to go to the very tips of our toes, like looking over a fence, and then down again, and then let's just stand up, and then we're going to go onto our tiptoes when we're standing up. So on the very tips of our toes, so that we can feel our calf muscles squeezing at the top and then squeezing at the top and then down again. And let's just rotate our hips. So a lot of people have been coming to see me with meniscus tears or previous meniscal damaging of one way or another, and they're asking me for exercises of what can they do when they've got a meniscus tear. And the answer is that meniscus in your knee is cartilage, and the cartilage has a very low blood supply, which means that if you damage it, it's not really going to fix itself. It just stays like that. So in your knee you've got two circles which sit on top of the tibia, which is the main lower bone in below your knee, and that cartilage on top of the tibia just needs to sit still and not move and protect the bone. But if it's not, let's change direction, if it's not sat down and it's like flapped up because you've damaged it, then it can get in the way. And so ideally we want our legs to be able to have complete control. So let's just stand on one leg and we're going to do some single leg squats. So when we do our single leg squats, we want our knees to go straight down and straight up, straight down and straight up, straight down and straight up. And when we've got complete control and we're not collapsing inwards, then let's swap legs, then we're able, I'm actually standing on a little hill here, then we're able to control that and having good proprioception, so knowing where your limbs are in space is a really helpful thing to be able to do. So when we've got good control of our knee, then we can go straight down and straight up, straight down and straight up. Now we do that by having strong quadricep muscles, strong hamstrings, strong abductor muscles. So the main abductor muscle is the gluteus medius muscle. So when the gluteus medius muscle pushes our leg out to the side, it helps us to keep our knee very straight going down. So we're just going to come to the back of our mat now and then do a closed chain lunge, which means that our one foot is going to stay stuck to the ground and our back foot is going to stay stuck to the ground. So that's what makes it closed chain. If your foot comes off the ground or any limb part comes off the ground, then that's an open chain exercise because it's got to then land in a way that is unpredictable. So when you're in the beginning stages of a meniscus injury, you want to try doing closed chain exercises where your foot is stuck to the floor and you can control it easily. So then you're strengthening but in a controlled way. And then let's swap legs. So this is helping our quadricep muscles to get strong, but it's also stretching our hip flexors. So when we're thinking of a meniscus tear, we want every part of our lower limb to be as strong as possible so that there's complete control. And in order to have strong muscles, we also need to have full range of movement. So if you've got limited hip extension, then you're going to have weaker glutes because you can't actually get your leg into full hip extension. So that's why we're doing lunges, to stretch our hip flexors. Now while we're in this position, we're just going to do a hip flexor stretch. So let's just take one leg forwards and then get our back leg as far back as possible, and then put our hands on our thigh and then extend our back and just feel that stretch in our hip flexors. So that's good. Now to make that more difficult, we're then going to get hold of our back leg and stretch. So we've got two hands on our ankle and we're bending our knee as far as we can, and we're also extending our back. And then we're going to swap legs. So first of all, our hands are on the floor. So the top of our foot is touching the floor, and then we're going to put our hands on our thigh. So our back leg is straight, and then we're extending our back, and then we're going to bend that knee. And then we're stretching our rectus femoris muscle now, because we've got our hip flexors on a stretch and we're bending our knee, and the hip flexors, the rectus femoris muscle attaches around the hip and below the knee. So if we stretch the hip and the knee, we stretch the rectus femoris muscle, and then we're also going to stretch the other three quadricep muscles which attach lower down. Okay, so we're doing a good stretch now. Okay, so let's just roll up one segment at a time. So we want to stretch our upper body, even though we're trying to strengthen our lower legs, but we just want to make sure that our upper body is moving well. So we're going to circle our shoulders back and then just do some neck rotations. and change direction. Okay, so let's do a really good hamstring stretch now. So we're just reaching down to our toes, and then we're twisting round to one side and then twisting round to the other side. So we can feel our hamstrings stretching. Now it's important to have good hamstring length. If any muscles in our lower leg are tight, then as I said before, we're going to compromise on strength because our body can't get into the range of movement that's necessary to get the full strength. And then we're going to just rest our hands on the floor, or you're going to go down as far as you can. And then we're going to take put all of our weight onto one leg and then the other leg. So we're transferring our weight from one leg to the other. And then walking our hands through. And then let's just sit down into a squat and stretch our feet out. So we've got our legs on the floor now. So we're going to point our toes and then just reach for our feet as far as we can. So we're going to try and put our head on our knees if we can. So let's just go. Now I've not done that much stretching today, so I'm a bit stiff to begin with, but as we get on with the Pilates session, we'll get more flexible through the session. Okay, so 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we're going to lie back and just stretch out. So our arms above our head, and we're just stretching our stomach muscles. I'm just going to come down because I'm falling into some flowers. So we're going to just lift up one leg and then the other. So we're keeping our legs pointed, our toes pointed and our knees straight. And then let's just bend our knees and then do some pelvic tilting. So we're tilting our pelvis forwards and then back, forwards and then back, forwards and then back, forwards and then back. So as we come forwards, we should be able to get two hands underneath our back. So now we're going to posteriorly tilt our pelvis, so our spine is now squashing onto the floor, and then we're going to peel one segment at a time off the floor. We're going to cross our arms over our chest, and then we're going into a bridge now. So we should have a straight line between our knees and our shoulders. So we're using our glutes to push up forwards, and then we're going to roll down again, and then come back up, and then down. So this is working our hamstrings and our gluteus maximus muscle. So now we're going to go into single tabletop position. Excuse me. Okay, so we're going to do 20 of them. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then swap legs. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, can't count, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's just do a little stretching position now. So we're going to stretch our abductors. So trying to get our knees down on the floor. So let's just use our muscles to just push down as far as we can. And then push down. And then we're going to take our legs apart now. So just try and point them if we can. And then we're going to take our head to our knee. And then the other leg. And then down into the middle. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we're going to roll back and do a piriformis stretch. So we've got one leg on the floor bent at 90 degrees. The other leg bent at 90 degrees but at an angle, so it's resting on the other leg. And then we're going to lift up the foot that was on the floor and then pull that leg into our chest so we can feel our piriformis stretching over the top. So it's at the top, a straight line at the top of our gluteus maximus muscle or our buttocks, and that piriformis muscle sits on top of the sciatic nerve. So if that's tight, then you'll end up getting a nerve pain in your buttocks. So it's a good idea to stretch as much as you can to make sure that you don't get a tight piriformis muscle. And then swap legs. Now sometimes a muscle can get a bit locked into position, so then you have to coax it into stretching as far as it can stretch. So now we're going to do a long stretch now. So we're going to do a hip abductor stretch. So one leg is out to the side, and then we're going to just lean into that stretch so that we can feel the inside of our groin stretching. And then we're going to come round and stretch our hip flexors again. We're going to keep the same leg straight and then come round the other way and just lean into it. So we're doing side flexion now. So there should be a straight line between our toes and our shoulder all the way up, and then coming round. So a lumbar rotation now. So my body is facing that way, but I'm able to twist around and look at the wall behind me. And then taking that leg out to the side, we're going to do another hamstring stretch. So our head should be on our knee. And then keeping the same leg straight, the other leg is going into a hurdle position. So there's a 90-degree bend here and a 90-degree bend of my knee. And then again, stretching into hamstrings. So hamstring stretch, we're putting our head on our knee. And then sitting up in that position, we're going to just pulse. So lifting our foot and our knee at the same time. Okay, so we're going to swap legs now. So it's hamstring, so we're doing the adductor stretch again. So stretching our adductors, we're leaning into our hips, feeling that stretch down our groin. wherever you can feel a stretch, just lean into there. So there's no right or wrong position as long as you can feel the stretch. And then we're going to come around. So we're stretching our hip flexors. So hands on your thigh and your back leg as far back as possible. And then keeping the same leg straight, doing a lumbar side flexion. So you should feel the stretch down the side of your trunk. It's just good to stretch in every single direction that you can feel a stretch. It's something that I've always done. People probably think I'm a bit weird, but every time when I was younger that I was waiting at a bus stop, I would be stretching. And every time I was studying or had to sit down for more than 5 minutes, I would obsessively stretch, which does seem a bit weird, but it does help to keep your joints always as mobile as possible, to stop you from getting stiff. When joints get stiff, then you generally get pain. So to avoid pain, then stretching is a good idea, and it helps to keep the blood circulating, and it also just enables you to keep all the muscle spindles moving, so that you always have a level of relaxation of your muscles. Your muscles can relax after they've been stretched, because that's what they're designed to do. There's a lot of cow poo around here, so we're just trying to avoid it. Not cow poo, sorry, cat poo. I'm sure that you wanted to know that. Okay, so let's just lift up our knee and our foot. So we were talking about how to strengthen our knee if we've got a meniscus injury. So I'm going to do clams now. So this is clams level 1. Now this is working our gluteus medius muscle, which is what I was talking about when we were doing single leg squats. So when we're doing clams, we want the knobbly bit of our pelvis to be pointing at the floor like a flashlight. So the only thing that's moving is our knee. Our heels are stuck together and our pelvis stays in one position, and then the knee moves. So when we're doing that, we're forcing the gluteus medius muscle to work hard, and when that gets strong, then it helps us to control our single leg squat. So a lot of people who have a meniscus tear or a meniscus injury of any sort, they generally are in a lot of pain and they avoid using that leg. So today I had a client who used to be a professional footballer, but he tore his meniscus, and then since he tore his meniscus, he decided to stop playing football and stop running. I mean, he's quite old, so he'd already stopped playing professionally, but when I say old, I mean he's in his 30s, but he's not playing professionally, he's just working, and he was doing football recreationally and running just for fitness, and then him injuring his meniscus just really put him off. He didn't want to have any more injuries. We're going to do clams level 2 now. So our heel is hovering in the air. So he didn't want to injure his knee any further because it really freaked him out. He's partially torn his ACL and torn his meniscus. And so after the operation, he only did 6 months rehab, where he should have done a year's rehab. And then he went on to avoid using that knee in various circumstances. So for example, if he was doing some DIY and he stood on a table and then he had to step down from the table, let's do clams level 3 now, he wouldn't step onto that knee, he'd step onto the other knee. So we'd always put his good leg down first. So because of this, he's now got quite a weak leg, the leg which is the injured one. But that's actually the polar opposite of what needs to happen. If you have a meniscus tear, you need to have that leg really strong, so that it can control every movement that you do perfectly. And because the muscles are so strong, then the condyles are perfectly aligned when you bend your knee. Let's do hip abduction now. And because they're perfectly aligned, it avoids pain, and then everything just works really easily, and every movement is easy and pain-free, because if you don't land perfectly, then you can catch the flap of the meniscus that's sticking up, whereas if you land perfectly, then the chances of the meniscus just sitting down and behaving and sitting where you want it to sit are much more likely. So that's why this video is being made, to show you what exercises you can do. So that was hip abduction straight, so that was a straight line, and now we're going to take our leg into extension. So our body's staying in one place, but now our leg is going into extension, and then we're going to lift up from there. So I've purposely put the camera directly looking at me so that you can see that my leg is now in extension. My toes are pointed because that activates my gluteus maximus muscle. And now we're going to do circles going from the midline to extension. Now these circles need to be perfect. Not ovals, not jiggedy-jaggedy, but just perfect circles, like as if you've got a pen on your big toe and you're drawing these circles perfectly. And then change direction. So when you're trying to do this perfectly, it does hurt your gluteus medius muscle, and you are going to be very aware of where it is, because it's now going to be telling you where it is clearly. Okay, right, let's just give our muscles a rest and do some lumbar rotation. This hasn't got anything to do with our meniscus, but it's always good to throw in some other exercises just to give our legs a bit of a rest, and we can give our back a stretch at the same time. Okay, so we're going to lie down and go back into hip abduction, and then we're going to go forwards and then go backwards with our heel, and then forwards and then backwards with our heel, and then forwards and then backwards with our heel, forwards and then backwards with our heel. So as we go forwards, we should feel our hamstrings stretching, and as we go backwards, we should feel that our hip flexors are stretching, and we're working our gluteus maximus to get into that position. Okay, so we're going to go from there onto our knee. So our knee's at 90 degrees, and now we're doing some hip circles. So again, we're working our gluteus medius muscle, our abductor muscles, taking our leg away from our midline. So we're really working our glutes as we do this, and that helps us to control our knee. And then change direction. As we're doing this, we're thinking about our pelvic floor. We're lifting our pelvic floor up and drawing our belly button in. Okay, I think that side is a bit exhausted, so we're going to change sides now. So going back to clams. Remembering our feet are together. So when we're thinking about our knees, we want to have as much range of movement as possible. So ideally, we want to be able to bend our knee fully, get into a full squat. We want to be able to kneel and sit on our feet, and even sit on our feet and lean backwards onto the floor, which we're going to do in a minute. But we can't always do that when we've got a meniscus tear, because the bit of the meniscus or cartilage that's flapping up can get caught and get in the way, or even you can have big fragments of your meniscus floating around your knee joint, and they can get stuck in between bones. And that can also stop you from bending your knee. It's really not ideal, which is why people have arthroscopies. Right, so we're doing clown's level 2 now. So an arthroscopy is generally a washing out of your knee and repairing any cartilage which is broken, and just trying to tidy up the whole thing. And also there's various different procedures which help to grow some fake cartilage. There's more and more new surgeries which are coming about every year. So the technology is getting better and better at helping people with meniscus tears, but generally speaking, the best solution is to not tear it in the first place. Now, obviously, you can't help it. If you've been playing football and then your foot gets stuck on the floor, but your body keeps moving for whatever reason, like say your studs got stuck in the floor, we do hip abduction now, but then somebody tackles you and they end up landing on you, then your body can go moving, but your foot can stay still, and that creates a huge twist in the knee, and that can just tear the meniscus. But on the other hand, there's things you can do to minimalise. So we're going into extension now. There's things you can do to minimalise the chances of you having a meniscus tear. So if you do strength and conditioning and make yourself as strong as possible, the chances are less likely, because you're able to control yourself, you're able to control what your knee is doing, or you're even able to push back against an opponent who is colliding into you. So the stronger that we can be, the better, the more prepared we are for unexpected eventualities. Let's just do some circles now. So all of these exercises are helping us to be as strong as possible. Now, I'm not using any weights, and that's what I like about this particular mat work Pilates, because we're just using our own body weight. And if you do these exercises, you will find it's actually quite difficult, because we're using gravity, and the weight of our leg is quite tiring when you've been doing it for a while. Okay, so let's do some side flexion with rotation. So we're trying to reach through as far as we can. We can even try and hold hands when we reach through.
Not quite.
I like how synchronised we are. So ideally we would like touch the floor when we reach back, and then reach through. We're trying to go as far as we can there. So we're reaching through, trying to hold hands, and then touching the floor as we rotate around. And then we're going to do some hip circles. So doing circles. Oh, actually, I forgot. Okay, hang on. I've done the wrong order. Sorry. I know that out. Okay, so we're going to go forwards and then back with our heel, forwards with our toes pointed, and then back with our heel, forwards, and then back with our heel. Okay, and now we're going to come up onto our leg and do some hip circles. So we're trying to get our leg as high as possible and then change direction. Okay, so we're going to come into full point kneeling now. So we're going to go into 4-point kneeling. So we've got our hips at 90 degrees and our shoulders on top of our hands, and we're going to do some pelvic tilting. So coming backwards with our pelvis and then forwards, backwards and then forwards. So we should feel our lower back really extending around our sacrum and our lumbar spine. And then we're going to do some circles. So we're moving our pelvis on our spine. So there's a really lovely stretch when you do this, and then change direction. And a lot of people with low back pain, they really struggle to move their lower back, and that's the reason why they're getting a stiff back, because the lower end of their spine is just not really moving and the muscles are not activated. So we're going to sit on our feet and go to child's pose now. So stretching our arms out as far as we can in front, and then we're going to do child's pose with a twist. So twisting around to one side and then twisting around to the other side. And then the other side. So we're feeling our back stretching, and then the other side. So we're going to go back into 4-point kneeling and then lift up our leg. So our leg is at 90 degrees, and then we're going to lift up from there. So we're doing hip extension to work our gluteus maximus muscle. And then swap legs. And then we're going to do the same thing but with our legs straight now. And then swap legs. And then swap legs again. So we're doing pulsing with our legs and then incorporating our arm. So we're keeping our elbows straight, we're keeping our knees straight, we're pointing our toes, and then we're going to do circles. Perfect circles, like you're painting with your big toe, and then change direction. It's important to change direction because quite often you can go one way but you can't go the other way. But you need to be prepared to activate your muscles in every direction. So pulsing up and down to start with, keeping your knees straight. Then circles. Change direction. Okay, so we're going to come forwards and then we're going to do some back extensions. Now, you might think this has got nothing to do with our knee, but if you can't do a full back extension, that's going to affect your pelvis. And if you've got a stiff pelvic sacrum lumbar connection, then you're also going to affect the strength of your legs, which is in turn going to affect your knee. So we want to stretch our back, and then we're going to bend our knees and do back extensions, bending our knees. Okay, now just keep doing that. So we're just in pairs today, so I'm going to bend her knees, and she's just going to carry on. So it's really helpful when you work in pairs because this is quite a difficult thing to do on your own. And then you can do it to me. So just carrying on doing the back extensions but with your knees bent. Okay? And then let's do one leg kick now. So we're propping ourselves up into a slight back extension, and then we're going to go kick, heel, kick, down, 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 kick, heel, kick, down. Okay, so then we're going to get hold of one leg with two hands. So we are going into back extension when we do this. And we're retracting our shoulders. We're lifting our knee off the floor. We're digging our hips into the floor. Then we're going to swap legs. So it's important to do it with two hands, because if you do it with one hand, you can side flex to get to your foot, and that's not stretching your hip flexors or your quadricep muscles. The point of this exercise is to stretch our quadricep muscles as much as possible. And then we're going to get hold of 2 feet, one hand each, and then we're going to rock. So we're stretching our quads, we're also stretching our back, and we're also activating our muscles in our back. Okay, so let's just stretch into splits now. So again, we're trying to get as much range of movement as we can. So we're going to do a hip flexor stretch, trying to get the back leg back as far as we can. And then bend that knee. And then sit back onto that leg. And then we're going to put our head on our knee. Now if you've got a meniscus tear, you might not be able to sit on your bottom. But in which case you can kneel like this. And if it hurts to kneel, then put loads of cushions, or do it on your bed, so on your mattress, so that it doesn't hurt as much. And then we're going to come forward. So yeah, cushioning your knee is very, very effective, and it definitely helps. Or even if you haven't got a meniscus tear, if you're trying to do splits and you do it on your bed, then the cushioning can really help you to get further and to not feel like you're in as much pain. You're not putting so much pressure through your knee. Okay, and then we're going to try and point our toes, which is going to stretch us even further. And then we're going to bend our back leg. Now if you can hold it with two hands, then do. I am wobbling when I do that, so I'm just going to use one hand. And try and edge that front leg further and further forwards. And I'm going to swap legs. So going into hip flexor stretch. And then get hold of that leg with two hands. And then we're going to sit on that leg. And then stretch that leg forwards. So if you've got a slippery surface, then it helps you to go further. You can just keep edging further and further forwards. And then we're going to bend that back leg. So bending the knee helps us to stretch our rectus femoris muscle, our quadricep muscles and hip flexors further, so then when you're not bending your knee, then it helps you to get further. And then pointing your toes. Okay, so we're going to do some dynamic exercises to help our, so we're going to do some dynamic, okay, hang on. We're going to do some dynamic exercises now to help us with our strengthening of our meniscus. So strengthening our lower leg. So we want to work our hip abductors, as we keep saying. So we can bend down. Let's just take a step forward. So we're going to bend down into a squat, and then we're going to step forwards, sideways, sorry. We're going to step sideways and then the other way. So squatting is working our gluteus maximus muscle, but then walking sideways is working our hip abductors. Okay, we're gonna do some more exercises. I'm gonna cut that out. So should we go like
Here.
next to each other? So we'll just go synchronized. So when I get out of the picture, then you can get in the picture.
Yep.
So now we're going to do some side running. So side running like this. You can do this around a track. So rather than running forwards, you can run sideways, and you can do it for a long time so that you can really work those muscles hard. And then we're going to do crossing over. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and please subscribe below if you want to watch more videos from Restored Eden Physiotherapy. Thank you, bye bye.